Recent commission lawsuits shifted responsibility for paying buyer agents to the buyer. Buyer agents are expensive, and it might be tempting to skip representation to save money. But should you? Hello, real estate friends. Tracy Thrower Conyers, longtime broker, former consumer fraud attorney, and creator of the Buyer Agent Game Plan here. And in this video, I'm going to share 5 scenarios where it might make sense to skip the buyer agent. Let's discuss. There was a seismic shift in residential real estate in August 2024. Courtesy of a couple of real estate class action lawsuits, we are now faced with 3 big shifts that have changed the way residential real estate is conducted. First, buyers now have to sign representation agreements with their agents in the earliest stages of the relationship. This is hugely different than historic practices, when many buyers felt free to readily change agents throughout their home buying journey, leading agents to coin the phrase, "buyers are liars." It also led to the most experienced agents gravitating towards sellers where contractual relationships were the norm. Second, buyers are now responsible for making sure their agents get paid. This is also radically different than historic practice, where sellers negotiated 5 to 6% commissions with their listing agents, and then the listing agent in turn would share a portion of that commission with the buyer's agent, with the amount offered being advertised on the MLS. Buyers did not have to come out of pocket in escrow for their agents to be paid. The sellers put up that money. Third, sellers are still able to pay for the buyer's agent, but their agent, the listing agent, cannot advertise this fact in the MLS. And since paying by the seller is optional, the buyer and the buyer's agent will have to conduct separate investigation into whether the seller is willing to pay. The post-lawsuit headlines have been a little bit scary, am I right? Tell me in the comments what you've read about the commission lawsuits and the practice changes. Did you think commissions would go down? Why or why not? And then other headlines and YouTube videos claim that buying a home can be done in as little as 7 simple steps. Why would anybody ever need to pay for an agent to do that? My favorite article was How to Buy a House Without a Realtor, and it's only a 6-minute read. So I completely understand the temptation to skip the agent, but the brutal reality is that finding, negotiating, and closing a home sale includes over 100 steps, all of which require a whole lot of professional expertise. In fact, I have a list of 111 things you better be prepared to do if you are going to buy a home without an agent. So if you're intent on going in alone, make sure you grab my list. For everybody else, download the list and use it to supervise your agent. Pick it up in my learning center at realtalklearning.com/2-do. I do see 5 scenarios where I think a buyer could go it alone without an agent and do okay. Number 1, if you are a licensed active agent, you might consider representing yourself. You know the basics. You know how to find properties, make offers, negotiate offers, navigate escrow, and close escrow. You can do okay without an agent. But without local expertise, will you get the best deal? Number 2, if you don't care about getting the best price and terms, then you can certainly represent yourself. But if you truly care about the best price and the best terms, you will want a local expert who is intimately familiar with the comps and local negotiation customs. Number 3, if you buy and sell all the time and have purchased recently in the area where you want to buy, you might do okay without an agent. But this scenario really only applies to super busy investors. Even the investors I talk to in my own real estate practice don't seem to focus on activities at the neighborhood level. If you're in this group and have transacted recently in the neighborhood where you're shopping, you might do okay without an agent. Number 4, if you're buying from family or another seller that you implicitly trust, you might do okay without an agent. But if the seller has an agent, you still might not get the best price and terms. That agent represents your family member, the seller, and owes fiduciary duties to that family member, not to you. At a minimum, if you find yourself in a situation like this, hire an attorney to look at the paperwork, but the attorney will have no clue whether you are getting the property for a fair, let alone advantageous price. And lastly, number 5, you might consider flying without an agent if you know everything. I know who you are, and there is simply nothing I or anybody else can say to convince you of the folly of flying without an agent. So you do what you're going to do, and good luck. Do you fall into one of these 5 categories? Drop the number in the comments. Look, I'm a 20-plus year real estate professional, and even though I fall into at least 2 of these categories, I wouldn't skip a local agent if I were going to buy in an area that I'm not 100% familiar with. There is just too much at stake. I would want an independent professional under contract to me to make sure I get the highest and best outcome for my investment. Finding a great agent can also save you money with strong negotiation skills and local market insider knowledge. You can also ask the seller to pay for your agent, but you do have to be ready to walk away from any home that you may have fallen in love with if the seller won't pay the buyer agent fees and you don't have the cash to do it yourself. This is trickier now after the lawsuits, but it can be done, especially with a strong agent. I can already see the comments. Of course she would say that. She's an agent. But I'm not here to sell you a house. And if you can legitimately think of another scenario where it makes sense to skip the agent, by all means, share it in the comments for the benefit of the other viewers. I'm here simply to have an unbiased conversation and provide my experience and expertise. So if you fall into one of these 5 categories, you might be okay skipping an expensive agent, but just let me say one more time that I've been in residential real estate for over 20 years, and I wouldn't do it. I would hire myself a local expert for all the reasons that I lay out in the video on your screen right now. Give it a watch and let me know if you agree.